for travel.
Eight years ago, the city of Missoula eliminated bus fare to make it free for everyone to get where they needed to go. It was an experiment. The city wanted to see how they could reshape the relationship the community had with public transportation. Though it was a straightforward premise, making the bus system truly free required collaboration between public and private entities. Local businesses, government agencies, and nonprofits banded together. And it worked. Eliminating fares helped increase ridership by more than 70%. It also made the bus system equitable in a way it had never been before, and it became a point of pride for the city. There's a good lesson here for the social impact sector. In a time where there's plenty of hand-wringing about how to make systems more equitable, sometimes the best solution is the most straightforward one. But straightforward doesn't mean easy. Often, this work requires intense collaboration. It means taking some big risks. And it demands a dogged commitment to do the work to understand what community members need and then prioritizing that above all else. Welcome to Impact Studio. I'm Sam Caplan, Vice President of Social Impact at Submittable. When I look at which companies are really making strides with their CSR work, it's often the ones who are willing to blur the lines between the corporate and the philanthropic, the ones softening borders between organizations and institutions to unite people around a common cause. No one does that better than Devi Thomas, global leader of nonprofit community capacity at Microsoft Philanthropies. She spent her career forging connections to strengthen communities, and that is a focal point in her work today. How are nonprofits at an advantage or maybe a disadvantage when they collaborate to solve problems?
I'd like to think that nonprofits are almost always at an advantage. But, in the way I sort of think about it is that those of us who've sort of built our careers in the nonprofit sector and then transferred to other sectors, like myself, I spent a little under 20 years in the nonprofit sector and then moved into tech. And I consider myself the nonprofit girl at the tech table. And really what that means is that we are the best advocates for how innovative a nonprofit can be. So as we think about that, it's really been an opportunity to understand how can a nonprofit best leverage its resources, its scrappy, kind of approach, or sometimes even its proximity to the community, to be able to partner with us in a way that really helps not just the sector, but helps us in philanthropy become better sort of advocates for those communities. And I think that places a little bit of the advantage and the disadvantage. I also think that when nonprofits sort of have fewer options, it's because they're not willing to experiment in the same way that other sectors might be willing to experiment. And this is where, again, we have that opportunity to learn from each other, collaborate, and co-create, because we can take on some of the risks associated with making mistakes. And that is not something that someone who serves communities in life-improving or life-changing ways is necessarily going to be able to do. So I think that's another area where I see a little bit more push and pull, particularly between tech philanthropy and nonprofits. And then finally, just in this area of driving trust into the sector, how can that space be seen as an area that is at the forefront of change? And the more that we can see nonprofits as being advantageous there, being the leaders there, it really does change. It closes the trust gap for everybody in terms of, should we support these causes? How do we support them? Where does the dollar go? What does donor transparency look like today as they're making more and more impact? And I think that's another role that nonprofits have an advantage, but also a disadvantage in a lot of ways. So how do we sort of close that and help them become more empowered to create long-term change?